So I came across this article by Beau from the Lotus Eaters earlier, and I really liked it, so I thought I would read it. It sounds like something that I would write, and I've had a bunch of people tell me they read things in my voice. I will take that as a good omen, and not that I have some dark powers to become the voice of people's inner monologue, and yes, I do sound quite conceited. But anyway, I have to defend Beau a little because some mongoloids in the comment section said, oh, it's a badly written article. Fuck you! It's informative yet snarky, which makes it entertaining. If you don't like it, that's because you suck, so quit your bitching, you whiny weasel. Anyway, I do not support Zelensky. No, I do not support Zelensky. I do not trust or support his government in the slightest. Why on earth would I? What, because Boris and Keir and Lizzie Hoyle said I should? How about no? How about you poke your blind support for a globalist puppet where the sun doesn't shine? What, I'm expected to cheer on a hand-picked NATO shill dragging Europe towards a nuclear winter because Sean Penn and Ben Stiller say I should? No, that's a hard pass for me, thanks. Ukrainian politics, certainly in the last 20 years or so, can be fairly categorized as a nearly impenetrable, nearly indecipherable hive of corruption and shady dealings, a nexus for intelligence services from both the East and the West to clandestinely pit their wills against each other. Ukrainian politics has been the semi-secret battleground for NATO-backed Western influence, which has repeatedly and maliciously tried to subvert and pry it away from Russia's sphere. Remember the extremely mysterious Euromaidan events of 2013 to 2014, featuring a cameo by John McCain and a bunch of unidentified snipers? What really happened there? What weird and nasty games were being played there? What political reaction or repercussions did that bring in its wake? Don't worry about it, the White House and Number 10 tell us. Don't question the sequence of events or the nature of cause and effect, we're told. The story only begins with the poor victim Zelensky, who must be supported indefinitely and without question. Again, how about no? I am not prepared to blindly support the Zelensky government. The Pentagon and CIA war bastards do not have my support. I will not fly a Ukrainian flag in solidarity. I am not gullible to the point of mindlessness, so no, I do not support Zelensky's puppet regime. The Kremlin has, of course, not been idle. The Donbass literally couldn't be more on their proverbial doorstep. Remember when Viktor Yushchenko was poisoned? Russia absolutely does not have clean hands. Putin is ruthless. Putin is prepared to take extreme action when necessary. The Russian state is just as pitiless and calculating as anything sent against them by the West. But that any criticism of Zelensky or his government is always immediately countered by the enemies of truth, the useful idiot deep state human drones, by suggesting that anyone who doesn't unquestioningly revere Zelensky as a hero among men must surely be a pro-Putin Russophile, is egregious to the extreme. They crudely try to argue, like children or morons, that it is a zero-sum game, entirely black and white, and that if you don't support Zelensky, then you must be a Kremlin-loving Putin supporter. In their tiny minds, there is no middle ground. If you're not with Zelensky, then you are against him. Nonsense, of course, pure arrant nonsense. The exact same stripe of nonsense that in fact leads to supporting the Afghani Mujahideen, or Saddam or Gaddafi, etc. The list of terrible regimes the Pentagon has decided to back, only to suffer catastrophic blowback, is astonishing. That many ordinary people are still wholeheartedly fooled by this type of haggard narrative is sickening. How many times do they need to be shown that the West war machine is a lying, cheating, many-headed hydra? Oh, but I'm supposed to just uniformly support whatever Zelensky says or does because Louise Mensch says I should. Yeah, no thanks. In the minds of those who fail to reason properly, the desire to have goodies and baddies in international conflict is proof of their low-resolution thinking. It is frankly stupid. That's what the global homo want, though. They want us to think in dumbed-down terms. They want us not to dwell on the complexities of reality. Just lionize the goodie and demonize the baddie. You don't even have to decide for yourself who is the goodie and who is the baddie. That's already been done for you. Much like the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, I refuse to be told who I am supposed to support. No, I am aware of enough history to know that both sides are dominated by fundamentalist maniacs whose politics and theology are primitive and disgusting and have nothing to do with my nation's best interests. There are no goodies. Both sides are repellent in my mind, so too then with Zelensky and Putin. My opinion of Putin has not changed in many, many years. Nothing he has done during this Ukraine conflict has changed my view. I expressed that view in a Contemplations podcast recorded before this current conflagration began. I said, I think of him as a killer, a stone-cold FSB killer, but as far as that goes, really quite reasonable. A reasonable person to deal with on many levels. He's not a monster. He's not a complete psychopath. He is not like one of those North Korean leaders that's just an unstable psycho that you can't trust, can't rely on in any way. He's not that. Nothing in the Donbass has changed my opinion. Do I remember the Litvinenko murder? Yes, I do. Do I remember the various Novichok poisoning events? Yes, I do. Does that mean I am now obliged to support the ultra-corrupt Zelensky government? No, not at all. Not remotely. That avenue of reasoning is backward, and I refuse to be bamboozled by it. Throw on top of that this mountain of underhanded filth inundating the situation from all directions, a brief look at Zelensky the man, and any hope of finding a redeeming feature is swept away. The European Court of Auditors repeatedly tells us that Ukraine is among the most corrupt countries in Europe, that oligarchs and massive institutional levels of corruption plague it. Just ignore that though, Sleepy Joe says. Just stop remembering that Zelensky and his government are clearly embezzling funds, the likes of Antony Blinken insist. Stop being aware that Zelensky and many of his orbit are essentially vapid TV personalities. Stop allowing your ears to hear that Zelensky has outlawed multiple opposition parties and unfriendly media outlets. He's a hero freedom fighter, remember? Definitely don't allow yourself to be reminded of the fact that Zelensky is a protege of the shadowy billionaire Ihor Kolomoisky, someone like Liz Truss demands. That Zelensky and members of his government openly say their sordid little conflict is the beginning of World War III, or that World War III is inevitable, and that there is no point trying to de-escalate it, or that Poland or Estonia are next. All of that is insane bunkum, balls, balderdash, baloney. Anyone who buys that is a fool, an empty-headed fool with no working concept of Eastern European history or the state of affairs as it exists on the ground right now in 2022. Poland is not next on Putin's hit list. That nation hasn't been working to undermine and subvert Russia for years on end. The physically revolting slob Boris Johnson recently said that he thought it was Putin's toxic masculinity that was one of the root causes behind Russia's aggression, that Putin's policies are in some way a reflection of his crazy macho-ness. No mention of the fact that Russia has been aggressed against for years before Putin finally lost his patience and launched any kind of formal invasion attempt. Boris doesn't want to remind you of any of those years. That aggression doesn't count or something. Again, don't think about it too much. Certainly don't feel any resentment about the UK pledging another £1 billion when we don't even have enough ambulances in our own country, or that swaths of our working class are reduced to reliance on food banks in order to get enough calories. Don't dwell on that, just wear a Ukraine badge on your lapel and keep your mouth shut. Well, if defending your own country from foreign interference is toxic masculinity, then I'm all for it. I'd rather a leader who errs towards old-school masculinity than one who lets his crypto-globalist deranged feminist wife tell him what to think and say. I'd rather a leader who isn't afraid to show his physique than one whose silhouette is closer to a beach ball than a human man. So no, I do not support the corrupt Zelensky and his puppet government. I am not on side with the Pentagon's war agenda. I do not want World War III to kick off over a manufactured conflict in an Eastern European backwater. That is a reasonable position to hold. Unrestricted support for Zelensky is not. Big ups to Beau, that was fun to read. And that is all for me for today. I will see you all next time.